Hey guys, I want to talk about the Glock. This is a video a long time coming. And I want to talk about the Glocks, and are they really worth it? Are they worth the money? Jump ahead guys if you're going to get bored. I just want to give you a little backstory. I first kind of came acquainted with the Glock around 2003. I was working as a dispatcher for a small police department, and I got the privilege, mostly through doing some ass kissing, of being able to do some firearm trainings with the guys, and was luckily able to do this over a 5-year period, and was able to put a lot of rounds downrange in several different Glocks, and was able to build up a lot of experience with them, and very grateful for that, because I think it's given me a lot of good information about the Glock. And if you follow my videos, you know that I am like the biggest shit talker about Glocks and lover of Glocks, all in the same person. Why is that? I think Glocks are great guns mechanically. They're built very well. The company Glock has been building them since the mid-80s, and they pretty much are all the same, you know, except for caliber and size and all that, but the mechanisms are all the same. So they have a great, you know, they've been doing this right for 30 years almost. My problem with Glock, a lot of the perception of them is bad. Going to an internet forum, there's always that fight and that argument about Glocks. Are they this mythical, magical handgun, or are they just a piece of crap, piece of plastic that's going to blow up in your hand? There's always that fight. And, you know, it's tough to reconcile that with this firearm, because you have people who just have unrealistic expectations of it, and it really hurts its reputation and hurts what it is. But we're not talking about reputation. We're not talking, you know, I know these things have been torture tested out to 700,000 rounds. I know people have put 100,000 rounds to these without cleaning them. I know all that. But let's talk about, really, what is this firearm? Polymer frame, you know. Glock was one of the earliest ones doing that here in America. Makes it lighter, you know, and despite initial rejection of it, you know, it stood the test of time. They are very durable. They do last. They don't fall apart for the most part. No external safeties on the slide. No gadgets or gizmos. Very easy to use if you're law enforcement or military, because it holsters very well. Comes in and out very easily. You can draw it very quickly. There is a little safety on the trigger, but that's pretty much it. These are very simple utilitarian guns. They come with all different accessories. I mean, guys have been making these for 30 years, millions of them made. Accessories, too many to list for each firearm. Holsters, magazines, even, you know, base plate extensions like this one here. I have different sights, different triggers, trigger jobs, you name it, too much. This is a gun with a huge history that has a ton of accessories you can get for it. It's striker fired, so let's explain that, because I think that's a big part of something you want to consider if you're looking into purchasing a Glock. Now, when I say striker fired, how that works is normally in a handgun you have a hammer, and that hammer could be, you know, cocked either through the trigger or by your own hand, depending on the action of the firearm. And that hammer comes down and hits a firing pin, which hits the primer on the bullet, ignites the bullet, sends it off down the barrel. Striker fired, you don't have a hammer. The firing pin is under spring tension. As you pull that trigger, it cocks fully and releases, eliminating the hammer, which does give it a little bit of a quicker ignition system and a little bit more reliable, in my opinion, of course, than a firearm with a hammer. I can't remember exactly who came up with the idea. I don't think it was Glock, actually, but Glock has done a really good job in creating a firearm with a decent trigger, not the best trigger, a decent trigger that fires very well and accurately with the striker system. So what you have is polymer frame with the striker, simple design. It was meant, you know, for law enforcement, military, that kind of use. The test of time has shown these to be very durable, and that they last a long time, and that Glock's quality control is actually very good. They have very few issues with quality control, the occasional recall and whatnot, but nothing to get into a fuss over. One of my favorite things about the Glocks, of course, is that they do have an excellent finish on them. I carry this is one of my main carry conceals. Got about 500 rounds through it. It sees a lot of holster time, but yet it still looks brand new. I mean, it really does. I mean, I cannot believe how this looks. It still looks brand new. And that just amazes me, you know, but I really think Glock, one of the best things they do is put on a good hard finish, because they know these are meant for hard use. They're going to see holster time, and you know, they accommodate that by having a really good finish on them. They're very accurate for what they are. Most guns in the price range, they're pretty accurate for being a gun that's meant to be fired, and fired a lot. You know, so my issue with Glock, they're not the best at anything. You know, they're not the most accurate firearm. They're not the toughest firearm. They're not the lightest. They're not the smallest. They're not the most reliable. They're really, really good, but they're not the best at anything. So if you're out there in the market and you're buying a gun, and say you want to get into competitive shooting. Now, I know tons of people use the Glock for competitive shooting, but you know, it is something you do have to work up to. You're not going to be able to buy a Glock, walk out and be a competitive shooter. It takes, you know, whereas you can buy firearms that will make it a little easier for you with the longer barrel, lighter triggers and whatnot to become good quicker. You know, you do have to have a lot of skill to become a great marksman with a Glock. It's a lot more work than a firearm that is meant for competitive shooting. It's not a firearm that's going to gain value. You're not going to buy this, hold on to it for 10 years, and make a ton of money on it. They're really not collectible. There's a huge market of used Glocks out there. So it's not a gun you're going to make a ton of money on. It's not something collectible, really. These are utility, 100% utility. Whereas you look at a gun like the 1911, that's a gun that's meant to be fired and fired a lot, but it also has a little more collector value than the Glock. So you have to look at, what do you want out of your firearm? If you're looking for something to shoot a lot, to use, Glocks are terrific. They're one of the best investments you can make because of all those reasons: the dependability, reliability, accuracy, all that. Provided you're not a Glock tard. You're not one of those people who thinks you can run this over with a tank and that it's guaranteed to run. You know, if you're willing to accept that this is a firearm, mass-produced, like any other, and that has that possibility that it could fail. You know, even though, you know, people have tested these out to 700,000 rounds, it doesn't mean this one's going to last 700,000 rounds. And if you understand that and see the gun for what it is, you know, you'll have a great experience with Glock. If you come in with that attitude that it's this mythical firearm, you may not have, you know, you may be one of those people in the forums who becomes a hater. And that comes into my kind of dual position on this firearm. I love the firearm because it is utilitarian. I love that about it, that it's simple. The design is simple. It's not fancy looking. It just has this, you know, the Glock has a beauty to it that's unique in that it's so simple. It's just simple, and it works. But at the same time, people's expectations and their attitude towards it makes me hate it. You know, I just look at the Glock tards who, you know, I go to the range sometimes and I pull out my P95 and I'll shoot it, and people are like, oh, you should have bought a Glock. And it's like, well, you know what, I do have a Glock, and I've shot a lot of Glocks, but my P95 performs pretty much identically, and it only cost me $300. So there is that element, those people who just, no matter what you have, what you own, if it's not a Glock, it's garbage, and it really takes away a lot of the fun out of this firearm. And I know it's horrible to let people affect your experience with a firearm, but that's the truth. You know, people who do that kind of thing do give it kind of a bad name. And like I said, guys, this is a gun that has been made for 30 years. They're making it right. They're doing it right. So many good things about it, but it's not perfect. It's not, you know, the Glock perfection thing. This is not perfection. It's utility. It's something you can use and use hard and not worry about it. But like I said, it's not the most accurate gun on the market. It's not the toughest gun on the market. It's not the most reliable gun on the market. But what you're getting and what you're paying for is good. Now I do, you know, if you're on a budget, buying a Smith & Wesson SD, not a bad idea. If you're a casual shooter, the SD may be perfect for you and may run great and never fail and be perfect and never have an issue with it. Springfield XD, same thing. If you're a casual shooter, just looking for a range gun, may be perfect and a cheaper option. Do you really need that Glock? Do you need to spend $550? If you're a casual shooter, you may not, you know, depending on your needs. And that's where we get into it. And I get into that hate thing. So if you're a guy who goes to the range once a month and fires off, say, 100 rounds, you're that guy. A Smith & Wesson SD might be perfect for you. You know, the amount of use you're going to get out of that, you're talking 1,200 rounds a year. So you're talking by the time you hit 10,000 rounds, you've had the gun a decade. It served you well. You spend $200 more, you get a Glock. 10,000 rounds is nothing to the Glock. Was that $200 worth it? You know, if you're a casual shooter, I don't necessarily know if it is. Now, if you're a hard user, you're looking to use this thing and you want to put, say, 100 rounds a week through a firearm, that SD may not be around in 10 years, whereas this Glock most likely will. So I think what happens is a lot of time people buy the Glock because of reputation when they really don't need it. You know, they don't need to spend that kind of money, and I think it hurts people because you go out, you buy a Glock, you spend $550 to shoot 100 rounds a month, and then you're, you know, maybe you overspent. You know, you don't have the money, and that's the only firearm you ever own because you feel like you spent $550 for something that, you know, isn't what you needed. You know, so I think a lot of the problem with firearms matching up that firearm for your use, and you know, maybe going out and buying an SD for that first firearm. You spent $300, you can buy more ammo, you can shoot it more, you have more fun, and you say, hey, I'm going to buy another firearm. I'm having so much fun with this. Then you buy yourself a Glock. You shoot that, say, oh wow, I really like this. Then you go out and you buy another. You know, you do see a lot of people who go out and spend the $550 on a Glock. You know, they don't get to shoot it a ton because they spend all their money, and you know, that's where my hate thing comes in. You know, like you see people who spend the money and they don't have it and they don't get to shoot it and enjoy it as much, and you know, it can kind of kill. You know, if you match up what you need versus what money you have and all that, I think you're way better off. But you know, and yeah, let's just leave it at this, guys. We'll just leave it at this. If you're a hard shooter, go with the Glock. If you're looking to go to the range once in a while, maybe a couple times a year, you may not need a Glock. If you're going to carry conceal, get the best. Get something really good because your life depends on that gun. If it's just your range gun, you may not need the Glock. So consider it that way. I love it. I hate it. Is it worth it? Look at how you're going to use it.